You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the middle of the week. You are here halfway to the weekend. That's the time we like to have the Campbell tell us what particular day it is. So hit it, man.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woohoo! Loving it. And by the way, I'm also loving the fact that Big Rig is back on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Did you have a good time away?
I did.
Don't ever do that again. No, Butters sat in and did his usual great job.
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about Space Force yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And I told him what you said, too, on the air.
Nice.
No, welcome back. Glad you're back. And, yeah, you guys had a good time away, family time?
Oh, yeah. Good family time. Cars broke down, but we're good.
At least you made it home before the car decided to break down.
Yeah.
There's that. All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you today. 3 o'clock today, a frequent flyer on the show. Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, is going to be here to break down for us the whole thing about the lawfare against Trump and where this latest. Did you hear Jack Smith, the special counsel appointed by Merrick Garland, has decided to re-indict Trump? Really? Yeah, we'll talk about that, what it means and where it goes. But that's coming up at 3 o'clock. Jay Town, former U.S. attorney. And then 4 o'clock, you know the deal. It's Wednesday, man. We're going to have a round of the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. 3 radio guys all getting together. We ping each other with questions and just see where the chips fall. But that's coming up at 4 o'clock here on the Hump Day. Grand Council with Jeff Poore, Dale Jackson. And then I still got a whole triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. The first one, lawfare. In conjunction with that conversation with Jay Town, we'll talk about lawfare. What's happening with that case over in Georgia? What's happening with the sentencing from that case up in New York? What's happening with the case in Virginia? Oh, by the way, what's happening with the case in Florida? Did you ever see anything like this in your whole life? Never. Everybody wants a little piece of Trump. Everybody got to get them a little lawfare. Well, we're going to talk about where they all are, where they're going. Number 1, Triple Dipper, lawfare. Number 2, so apparently we had a mea culpa yesterday, maybe the day before. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg from Meta, the new parent company for Facebook, basically just announced to the world, yep, we lied. Yeah, I mean, the level of censorship that we've seen through social media is big. Oh, Phil, it's just TikTok and stuff. I mean, nobody cares. Oh, they do. Wait till you hear the stats and the impact it can have. So number 2 on the Triple Dipper, I'm calling it social lies. That's where it is, social lies. And then number 3, the woke wars is what I'm calling it. Not woke world, not all the fun stuff. I'm talking about the fight back. I'm talking about when people have had enough, when lawsuits are filed and people take a stand. Sometimes you win, sometimes we don't. But the reality is you don't win a single thing that you don't try. So number 3 on the Triple Dipper, the woke wars, we'll talk about it then. All right, let me move over here to the Right Side Way monologue, the opening for today, and I'm calling this one Standing on the Wall. And I'll be honest with you, my wife said something that was extremely noteworthy recently. I jotted it down in my phone so I wouldn't forget. We were talking about the show, about the times that we live in, and she said this. She said, he gave us freedom so that we could spread freedom. Wow. He, meaning God, gave us freedom so that we could spread freedom. I agree with that. It also means that once we've been given something, it's up to us to be a good steward of it. To be the holders of something valuable leaves you with a choice. You can be a miser, hiding in a dark room, talking to your precious like Gollum in his dark cave. Or you can be a steward, an investor, a person who believes that to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's not just a thing for money. or tangible resources. That goes to one of the greatest gifts that we have ever been given, something that many nations and peoples only dream about. Freedom, actual freedom. Freedom to speak, to move about, to gather, to worship, to vote, to be defended. Actual freedom is more than just a notion. It's a right. It's a measure of life. In many ways, it can be said that freedom is life itself, and next to the freedom that I believe I have in Jesus Christ, there's no greater freedom next in line than the freedoms that I have as an American citizen. But the freedoms that you and I have, they are under attack right now in a major way. There are those who believe that they are not there to serve the greater good, but to show the masses why their version of good is greater. There's a difference. But listen, when leaders will err on the side of freedom and personal liberty, it's hard for them to go wrong. I mean, why would there ever need to be a substitute for the freedoms that we know as Americans? I don't want some cheap imitation of freedom. I don't want someone telling me that I'm free to move about but not to say or to think certain things, that I'm free to succeed in life as long as I understand that what I build is going to be redistributed liberally to others. Look, don't pretend I'm free when your version of a free society means that criminals walk the streets while law-abiding citizens can't defend themselves. It's time for freedom-loving patriots to stand on the wall, to safeguard more than just our natural resources, but the actual natural law itself. In the book of Nehemiah, we're told the story of rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem. The walls in those times, they were the signs of safety and sanctuary, and how you kept the enemy out. Nehemiah was distraught with the fact that the wall was in ruins, so he petitioned the king of Persia, who he worked for, to allow him to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the wall. It was no small thing. The Jewish people were beaten down. They had no real leadership, but the rebuilding began. And first there was ridicule, but in Nehemiah 4:6 it says, "But yet the people had a mind to work." I'm telling you, leadership makes a difference. The people had a mind to work. It meant that the rank and file, they wanted their wall, their security, their national identity restored. Then there was full-on opposition, so Nehemiah encouraged the people to pray, which they did, but he also put armed men to stand on the wall while the building continued. Nehemiah told them, God will fight for us, but he never told them to put down their swords or to stop rebuilding the wall. In fact, he encouraged the people not to lose heart because of their opponents. He said to them, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and terrible and will fight for your kin, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. The wall was rebuilt in record time. Look, we're at that kind of place right now, in my opinion. Culturally speaking, America is at a turning point. Like Maximus said in the movie Gladiator, the time for half measures and talk is over. Thomas Paine addressed this very thing in the days in which our country was founded. In December of 1776, Paine wrote a piece called The Crisis. He talked about the fact that there was a need for good men to rise up to what was needed to ensure that future generations would not only have freedom, but to enjoy freedom and to the freedom to spread freedom. Paine said this, here's his quote. He said, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives us everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price upon its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated." In essence, what Paine was saying back at the beginning of our country was that freedom is priceless. But that the times they were in were the times that tried men's souls, he said, and too many of them were what he called sunshine patriots, meaning the kind of people that only speak up when the weather is good and the danger is light. Too many sunshine patriots would choose to let freedom slip away because they didn't want to take a hard stand up on the wall. Samuel Adams, around that same time frame, said this. He said, "The liberties of our country, the freedoms of our civil constitution are worth defending at all hazards. It is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as a fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood. It will bring a mark of everlasting infamy on the present generation, enlightened as it is, if we should suffer them to be wrested from us by violence without a struggle, or be cheated out of them by the artifices of designing men." He's basically saying, don't give up without a fight. Don't just sit there and roll over and let it happen. Recognize how valuable it is to have freedom. And it was our ancestors who paid for it, and it's our job to maintain it. In the end, Look, I want to know I stood on a wall. I want each one of you to know the same. That even if they took our ability to live freely, that we will not have gone quietly. So I will speak, and so should you. And I will know and assess the issues of the day and measure their outcomes against the ideas of freedom, and so should you. I will vote, and I will act, and I will assemble, and I will worship, and so should you. Because it is in the doing of freedom that we spread freedom. It may just be your little portion of the wall, just the folks in your immediate sphere, just the one issue you see at your kid's school or your local voting booth or your city hall. It might be you banding together with friends and getting some other like-minded patriots together, deciding to pray at an event or speak out about a cultural issue or, for that matter, stick up for another patriot who's being persecuted. Or maybe, just maybe, you'll actually feel called to throw your name in the hat, run for some office, or raise money for a cause, or tell somebody about a thing that inspired you, which then inspires them and then inspires 10 others. You see, my lovely Charlene was right. He gave us freedom, not so we could sit on it and pretend that hiding in a cave would ever preserve it. He, God, gave us freedom so we could spread freedom. There's a poem I know of that says several things about a life well lived in the service of freedom. And there's one stanza that describes exactly the sense that I'm talking about. The sense that when it comes time for the final look back, when we reach the end of our days, that we won't have any regrets about having been a poor steward of freedom. And the stanza in particular that I'm talking about says this. It says, I stood upon the wall, I stood my post, a servant to the cause and a foe to the host. Lie down and feel the rest, a rest well earned. They called and I went, and the world yet turns. Look, here's the bottom line, you guys. Freedom is not free. It requires time and treasure and toil. But He, God, gave us freedom so we could spread freedom. So you best be taking up that spot on the wall. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Standing on the wall, I'm saying, you stand the wall, you stand your post, a servant to the cause and a foe to the host. Don't look back one day and realize you just kind of rolled over and let it fade away. It matters. Freedom, it matters. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades, I like to say. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it, same number for both. Some of y'all already figured that out. I'll get a few text messages here momentarily. And yeah, we're going to be diving into the first dipper here shortly with a conversation also happening with Jay Town, former U.S. attorney. I'm just literally trying to figure out how Democrats sleep at night. Now, some will say, well, if there's smoke, there's fire. Okay, no, not really, especially when the fires keep getting put out. You know, this is not really a blazing inferno you've got going here, Dems, and yet they will continue nonstop to just unabated do everything they can to create lawfare against Donald Trump. Never seen anything like this in my life. I mean, I've seen some things out there you look at and go, well, why is nobody pursuing that? Or why? How did they get away with that? And then I look at the stuff that Trump's got, and I'm thinking, I don't think there's any theory of the law that actually leads to that. We've got situations right now, the lawsuit with Fani Willis over in Georgia, it's on permanent hold right now. The Georgia appellate courts are reviewing to see whether or not Fani Willis herself acted unethically and needs to be removed from the case. That case is now indefinitely on hold. It could come back, but right now, Fani Willis has got trouble. What does that tell you? Then you got the case in Florida, the classified documents case, where the Supreme Court of the United States just ruled that, guess what? Immunity. Oh, guess what? The case in Florida just got dismissed completely. Well, how about that? Now you got the case in Virginia. Well, because the Supreme Court has ruled otherwise, they've now had to amend that entire suit, or not suit, but indictment. And a superseding indictment being brought on. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Well, we can't get him. What are we going to do? I don't know. Let's find a new way. Then you got the stuff going on up in New York, where Alvin Bragg, with the most god-awful case anybody ever saw. And guess what? Half the evidence or more that was submitted were things that may well have been covered under the immunity ruling we got from the Supreme Court of the United States. But now the judge is considering whether he's going to have a sentencing hearing just, less than 45 days from the election? I mean, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Jeremy from Madison talking about the monologue says, right on, brother. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate you, man. TL from Huntsville says, amazing monologue, Phil. Perhaps one of your best. Thanks, man. Stand on the wall, he says. Stand for freedom together. Quote, together we are stronger. Together we are unbroken. Together we can do anything. That's an unknown quote, but it's a good one. Thank you, TL. TL always has great quotes. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Welcome back to Rightside Radio, Big Rig. So also, I just want to let you know that Butters was yesterday's winner because he executed the Taco Tuesday sound effect perfectly. Well, he deserved it. He did. And by the way, we appreciated Butters not only filling in on the days that we're playing, but jumping back in yesterday when Big Rig had a gaffe with the car. So life happens, man. And I'm glad we had Butters in the background.
Yeah, thankful for Butters.
Absolutely. Okay, listen. Plenty to talk about today. Y'all text or call in if you want to, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. I will also remind you, before we head to the break, that the latest edition of the Right Philosophy podcast, the video podcast, is up. It's up right, I believe it's up right now. But the Right Philosophy is the video podcast that I do every week. Picture like what you just heard me say in my monologue, but in video format with me. I'm actually sitting in my study at home, and it's more of an expanded version, and it's been enjoyable to do, and the quality and the content has been something that I've just been thoroughly enjoying, and a bunch of y'all have too apparently. So check it out. Go to rightsidemedia.org and go to the podcast tab. You'll find the latest one there today. It comes out every Wednesday for Right Philosophy. And then on Fridays, Right Click with Birdman comes out, and that's also a worthy one. All right, listen, Lord, I'm going to get my notes ready. We're going to dive right in. I've got a stack of notes. I mean, this one dipper is probably, can you hear how thick that is? That's a lot of paper just for one dipper. I'm not sure how this happened, but it seemed like when I was resourcing, I couldn't stop myself.
There's not much snap to that one.
There were not a snap. I'll have to break them down individually so I can snap the papers. But yeah. listen, lawfare. I'm going to try to keep my lawyer hat on and remain objective at times, but I'm pretty sure my radio guy hat's going to be on most of the time, and I'm going to try not to get too incensed. But this is amazing. Has anybody with any credibility on the left going to ever say, could we just please stop this and do the election? That's where we are. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. I am talking about Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. A few more quick text messages. I'll get those caught up, and then I'll jump on into the material. So Chris from Madison says, it's on topic. Let me see. He says, hey, Phil, quick question for you about voting. Okay. All right, here we go. I know you're a big proponent for everyone getting out to vote. Sometimes I have the feeling that since we live in such a red state, it doesn't really matter. I've heard other people say something similar. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of voting, even though we're in such a one-sided state. Here's my thought. Vote! How's that for an answer? Why would you not? The person who says, well, my vote doesn't really count, let me just tell you something. In the entire nation, in the Bush-Gore election of 2000, everything came down to one county in South Florida. Everything. The entire nation waited to see what one county in Florida had to do. Florida was a, generally speaking, red to purple state back then. And in one county in South Florida, they had all kinds of election gaffes. They had to do what's called counting chads. And when they finally did it, my recollection is that Bush won the election by about 300 votes on a national basis. So the Electoral College is huge. Don't ever assume that where you are is safe. Here's the other thing. I also have a good friend who ran for city council, local race. She lost by 1 vote. We appealed it. I was her attorney. We appealed it because we found 9 votes that we believe should have counted. When we won the case, which we did, the judge ruled that 5 of those 9 that we found should be counted, and then we opened them to see what they were, and she still lost by 1 when it was all said and done. I like to say we won the case and lost the race. But here's the problem. She found out later on that a couple, 2 people, close friends of hers, had gotten complacent and forgot to go vote. Those 2 people would have swung the entire thing. All I'm saying is this: you don't take a constitutional right like voting. That's like saying, I don't know that I'm going to speak up at all. Why? You have freedom of speech. I just don't know if I'm going to. Well, that's just lazy. So my point is this. And Chris, by the way, thanks for your text. It's a great text. It got me on a mini rant. But the bottom line is this: never, ever, ever give away one of your rights. If you can't go vote because something comes up with health or you're out of town or whatever else, I get it. But don't ever let it be because, well, I don't know. It matters no matter where you are. Absolutely does. John from Brownsboro says, are you going to meet up with Tuberville, Dan Bongino, and Dale Jackson at the Auburn game? They all said they'd be there. I have no plans for that at this particular point, although I am an Auburn fan. That would be a hoot. Brand new texter, Shorty from Anderson. How about that? Shorty from Anderson says, first time texter, long time listener. That was an inspiring open monologue. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Shorty. Appreciate you, man. And then John from Huntsville again says, hey, Phil, did you hear that in Texas and Virginia, a lot of ineligible voters have been removed from the voter rolls? Yep, Alabama too, brother. I want to say over 3,200 names have been taken from the Alabama rolls because they were found to be otherwise, ineligible anyway. All right, so number 1, triple dipper, lawfare. Lawfare, what am I talking about? That's the weaponization of the legal system against somebody else. Trump has had to endure massive cases, both civilly and criminally, against him all at one time. Think about this. You got a woman who showed up out of nowhere saying that 40 years ago, Trump had allegedly raped her in the back of a store. Okay, he has always denied it. He was not convicted of rape, but she sued him civilly for defamation because he spoke out about her saying these things about him. She prevailed because the state legislature, seeing what was coming in New York, changed the law to amend the statute of limitations to allow her to file this suit. It was a get Trump opportunity. And so they did. And so now that's on appeal. Then secondly, You've got the New York Attorney General going after Trump's businesses. You've got the New York City DA, Alvin Bragg, going after Trump criminally. Alvin Bragg had to make up things that had never been done in the law before. Not only that, but he decided that since Trump had written checks that he didn't like for things that were allegedly for legal services, get this, he went ahead and said, well, every check is another felony. Really? It's not a felony that he wrote checks. You're saying that every single one of those checks was a felony. So when the liberals try to tell you, he was convicted on 34 felony counts, he wrote 34 checks to the same thing. So if one's a crime, they all became a crime. That's on appeal. Why? Because it needs to be, because that was a jackleg case. Then you got the situation with the classified documents case. Biden has classified documents in his garage. Biden has classified documents in his study. Biden has classified documents at the Penn Biden Center. Biden's not facing any charges. Interesting. Yet the FBI thinks it's okay to go ahead and raid Mar-a-Lago and then bring a special counsel to indict Trump on the classified documents. And then, oh, by the way, that case was just thrown out. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Then you got the fact that you got Fani Willis. Fani over there in Atlanta area. Fani is bringing a case. She indicts 18 people. Not just Trump, 18 separate people, some of which were Trump's attorneys. Like, I'm sitting here as an attorney right now thinking, you mean if I'm helping my client under attorney-client privilege, zealously defending their interests as a matter of law, that a DA can prosecute me? That's unreal. The bottom line is people's lives are being ruined because of Get Trump. 18 different people indicted. That case is now indefinitely on hold. Why? Because we found out that Fani's not that good a person and that she may have done some pretty unethical things to try and get to the point that she could get Trump. And now the appellate courts in Georgia are reviewing her to see whether she has to be taken off the case. And if she's taken off that case, I think that case goes away, period. And then you got the other Jack Smith special counsel case. Jack Smith's still mad because his Florida case got thrown out. Okay, but don't forget, Jack Smith is still indicting Trump on January 6th stuff. Oh, yeah. Well, where's that one now? Because keep in mind, some of this has already gone to the Supreme Court of the United States. The question of presidential immunity is a big deal. Let me tell you something. If you're president of the United States and every decision you make is one that someone can either sue you for or, for that matter, bring a criminal indictment for, then no president is going to be able to get their job done ever because they know that half the nation already hates them anyway. Watch what happens to Trump. The Supreme Court of the United States agreed. Substantive immunity is real. You need to have it. The functions of government cannot be sustained if someone is constantly in fear of making a decision that someone doesn't like and then they bring a jackleg case against you. So the SCOTUS said yes, immunity. Jack Smith just decided, well, that might wind up doing away with a lot of my stuff on this January 6th thing, so I'll just amend the case. And he did, and that's where we are. Story here on Fox News comes out yesterday. Trump indicted for a second time in the election subversion case brought by special counsel Jack Smith. So here's the thing. Jack Smith is a jackleg, but Jack Smith, he literally filed what's called a superseding indictment. In other words, we have an indictment. We already indicted him, but I'm bringing another indictment. This is the one we're going to use now. The new indictment, it keeps all the original criminal charges, but it narrows it down and reframes it, which is like the legal way of saying, oops, what I meant to say was, that's what we got. We've got an oops. Oh, you mean like my case was so wrong that it might all get thrown out? Oops, let me amend that real quick. That's kind of where we are. It says specifically the indictment has been changed to remove allegations involving the Department of Justice and other government officials. Why? Because SCOTUS ruled there's immunity. So all the places where he was trying to say, well, he even talked to his attorney general. Well, we believe he might have been trying to weaponize government for January 6th and the election subversion. And if Trump talked to his people and said, what options do I have? What can we do about this? The fact that he talked to his people is a function of government. The Supreme Court of the United States says you can't indict him for that, for consulting with his attorney. You can't do that because he didn't follow through on the action. He talked about it, but he didn't follow through on it. There's a difference. That's called consultation, not collusion. Conspiracy is not always just talking. Now, here's the thing. The new indictment removed all of the references to things he did with others in office. Why? Because now they can say, here we have, conspiracy to defraud the United States as an individual, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding as an individual, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, both against him as an individual. So they stripped down the criminal case, trying to file this thing just in time because he had a deadline, Jack Smith did, to tell the judge how they want to proceed after the Supreme Court came in. Now we're going to see whether the judge allows it. And I listen, the whole thing just, God, this boggles my mind. Trump came out and made a statement writing on Truth Social that no presidential candidate or candidate for any office has ever had to put up with all this lawfare and weaponization directly out of the office of a political opponent. I would agree. And you know what? If there was one thing, if they had looked among all the things they hate about Trump and they had found a case and they said, this looks real, I think we need to pursue this. And there was one. I think the world would look at it and go, ooh, this is going to be interesting. How's that going to play out? But when you bring one here and one here and one here and one here, and then one over there, and then, oh, by the way, you're talking about one over there, after a while it begins to look like overreach, right? It begins to look like a feeding frenzy. Like everybody wanted a little piece of lawfare. All God's children who hate Trump want a chance to be able to hang something on their wall that says, I got a piece of Trump. It's nauseating, to be honest with you. And as an attorney, I have a love for the law. I really do. Mine has all been civil. I don't practice criminal law, but I have a love for the law. I love to litigate. I like going to court. I like dealing with witnesses and evidence and trying to put things on in a cogent and coherent manner. But in the middle of it all, I also know that I love the law. I love the application of the law. I love knowing that we're a nation of laws. And I'm watching this right now. It is an absolute abomination of what the law is supposed to be. If you can weaponize the law against people, then nobody's safe. Because the law is supposed to be where you turn to safeguard society. When society can be torn down by the law, you have tyranny. It's two different things. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We will do that break and come right back. I got some reaction from a few of our elected officials here in the state of Alabama about this new Trump prosecution. And then I'll tell you about some more. And then coming up top of the hour, Jay Town, former U.S. attorney. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Big Rig, I'm looking up on the screen. It tells me that the Foo Fighters don't want Trump playing their music anymore. Your thoughts, quick. What do you think?
Music's for everybody.
I'm saying play it.
Yeah.
I think they got mad the other day because they played "There Goes My Hero" when they introduced Robert F. Kennedy endorsing Trump.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty epic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Foo Fighters would probably sell more records if they'd go ahead and just stay quiet.
Maybe.
I'm just saying. All right. Hey, listen. I'm in this first dipper here, lawfare. So just so you know, this superseding indictment that just showed up yesterday in the Trump January 6th election subversion case. We have two of our politicos in Alabama that have already spoken out about it. U.S. Representative Barry Moore, who's been on the show multiple times. He serves down in the lower part of the state from the Wiregrass region. He called the new indictment election interference, plain and simple. And then U.S. Representative Robert Adderholt, that represents a big part of this listening area here in North Alabama, he said the new indictment was an example of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris weaponizing the Justice Department. I agree. But what about some of the other stuff? Here's a question I have. Is Trump going to be sentenced to jail? Because the other case one of the other cases you've got is the one that Judge Juan Merchan up in New York presided over, the Alvin Bragg case, the Stormy Daniels falsifying records case, the one where they came up with a crafty way of creating 34 separate felony counts, which Judge, where was your mind? Anyway, what's going to happen with that? Newsweek has a piece. The sentencing is scheduled for September 18th, which is what? Less than about 45 days-ish before the actual election day? It says Donald Trump, according to Newsweek, they say he's unlikely to be jailed for the Stormy Daniels falsifying records case. I don't trust Newsweek. In my opinion, I think there is a risk that Merchan would sentence him to jail. I don't know that for a fact. This is not my bailiwick per se in the law, but I will say this. There is every reason for Newsweek to downplay it because it's inflammatory, and there are people out there who will give a sympathy vote to Trump because they're mad at the way he's being treated. The Dems have overplayed their hands in the minds of some people. It says Trump is due to be sentenced on September 18th, less than 2 months before the presidential election. Judge Juan Merchan delayed the sentencing from July to September so he could consider the impact of the Supreme Court's recent presidential immunity decision. Then they interview several people. There's a law professor at Syracuse named Greg Germain. He says he believes that in the end, this is going to be dismissed on appeal. In the meantime, he says if Merchan sentenced him to jail in the middle of the election, I think the courts would do whatever necessary to prevent that. In other words, he doesn't think Merchan will be allowed to send the presidential nominee to jail on something that is a nonviolent first offense that is also so speculative. Another federal prosecutor chimed in, told Newsweek that she believes there's a strong chance that Trump won't even be sentenced until after the election, like they may delay it further. And then you've got a law professor and former Bush administration guy named John Yoo. I've seen his commentary. He's pretty sharp. Yoo thinks that there's a strong chance that Trump will get sentenced to jail. So basically what I'm hearing is they don't know. They don't know. No one's been able to predict Merchan so far anyway, although I will say this, Merchan has let everything that could go against Trump happen. And then, okay, how about this? Jack Smith is not done. Jack Smith is not reading the tea leaves in Florida. Jack Smith, once again, the same guy who introduced the superseding indictment yesterday, Jack Smith is the one who also had the classified documents case thrown out that he was trying to bring in Florida. He had to bring it in Florida because the documents were stored at Mar-a-Lago. So he's bringing it in Florida. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is based over in Atlanta, is part of it. The 11th Circuit is Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. So if there's an appeal within a district or federal case in those three states, it goes first to the federal district, unless for some reason it bypasses and goes straight to the Supreme Court. In this case, the 11th Circuit is going to hear the fact that Jack Smith just filed an appeal of the dismissal. Okay. Bottom line is he's not quitting. He wants Trump so bad he can hardly stand it. So Jack Smith is bringing it back again, and we'll see where that goes. And then there's Fannie Willis. Listen, that one turned into a cartoon case. That one turned into like an episode of, some bad sitcom where you look at it and go, okay, what scriptwriter made this up? You've got an activist DA who makes no bones about it, who speaks about things as if they're racial when she's trying to go after the president of the United States. And she hires the guy she's having an affair with, who's never done criminal law, to help her corral the case. And the whole thing begins to fall apart because guess what? She's not a good person. It's unbelievable. Coming up next, Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, will break some of it for us. Let's see what he had to say. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on Hump Day. You're halfway to the weekend. We're going to get you all the way to go home time today. Now, listen, I'm in Dipper number 1 for the day, lawfare. I'm talking about the things. I've never seen such a concerted civil and criminal effort to weaponize the systems of law that are supposed to be a part of the hallmarks of our country in such a way that, just really attack an individual, in this case, Donald Trump. And by the way, anybody who stands next to him. Because don't think there's not collateral damage here. But that being said, let me bring on somebody who is who's been in the fray as both a prosecutor and a former U.S. attorney. So Jay Town has got his degree from Notre Dame, his Juris Doctorate from Seton Hall. He was a JAG officer in the Marine Corps. He was a U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump in the Northern District of Alabama, and he's on the phone right now. Jay Town, how you doing?
Bill, Semper Fi. Thanks for having me on, my friend.
Semper Fi, man. Hey, so let me ask you this. First of all, break it down for me. Jack Smith, superseding indictment yesterday. What the heck?
Yeah, it's almost like Jack Smith practices losing, or he's in the 5 stages of grief. I can't quite figure it out, but this supersede, what I did last night, I for your listeners, I do a lot of television appearances too as a Trump surrogate, legal surrogate, and when I laid the 2 indictments, the original indictment and then the superseding indictment that came out yesterday, when I laid them side by side, they're almost identical. About the only thing that was carved out is references to the Department of Justice and meetings Trump had with candidly, Jeffrey Clark, who's an idiot. And so the nothing really changed. This was a meaningless filing by Jack Smith, and by meaningless, here's why I say that, Phil. In a week, they're going to have a hearing, and they've been briefing back and forth with Judge Chutkan. They're going to have a hearing about what remains in the indictment after the Trump versus United States immunity opinion, and also after the Fisher opinion. You'll recall the Fisher opinion was the week prior to the immunity case, so it sort of gets overshadowed now, but at the time, it was devastating to the obstruction of an official proceeding counts to Trump because, remember, they said delaying an official proceeding cannot be obstruction. That's not what this law says. That's what Trump's been charged with.
Yeah.
He isn't charged with destroying a meaningful document. He didn't take all of the electoral ballots and burn them in a campfire. He didn't do anything. He gave a speech at the Ellipse, and a bunch of other people did things. But those counts remain in the superseding indictment, untouched, unfettered by the Fisher opinion, and there still remains in the superseding indictment a number of pieces of evidence that presumptively Trump is immune from prosecution or those activities even being evidence in a trial or before a grand jury. And so clearly Jack Smith, the Supreme Court is shaking its head at Jack Smith if it's read the superseding indictment today. And so remember, he's not just immune from prosecution. The things that he's immune from, those official acts, like tweets, like conversations with his chief of staff, with the vice president of the United States, with White House counsel, speeches he gave at the Ellipse, again, tweets and other conversations, things in the Oval, that can't be used as evidence, period. If he's immune, it can't be used against him. And so, and the Supreme Court is very clear to carve that out. And Jack Smith left it all in. And remember, This is an interlocutory right, Phil. And by interlocutory, what that means is that, and you know this, but for your listeners, what that means is that before we go to trial, before I suffer the indignities of this process any further, I get to appeal your ruling saying I'm not immune, or I'm not, or this particular activity or conduct is not immune. And so this is going back to the Supreme Court next year. And, when Trump wins in November, takes office in January. I hope I'm on the transition team for Trump so that I'm the guy that gets to fire Jack Smith.
Oh, that would be all right. If that happens, you're going to be on the show. All right, we're going to talk about it then. But
I might live stream it. So okay,
we'll be there with you, man. I want the T-shirt. But
yeah.
So let me ask you. This is in front of what U.S. District Judge? This is Chutkan, Tanya Chutkan, I believe,
Yep.
that has it. And
Yep.
so there's a hearing next week, a status hearing. Is it possible that there be a motion to dismiss the superseding indictment that could be ruled on as early as next week?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see dismissal motions all the way throughout this process, and they have to do that to preserve any issues that they would like to take up on appeal. Judge Chutkan's not a friendly judge. Think of Judge Chutkan as Juan Merchan, but with a federal black robe instead of a state black robe in New York. She doesn't remember, she found originally that there's not even a such thing as immunity.
Yeah.
For anybody, and certainly not for Trump. And the Supreme Court said, "Man, are you stupid?" Right? And so they were a bit more pithy than that. And I say all this tongue in cheek, but Phil, listen, let me be serious for a moment. I've spent my entire adult life in the service to my country, to my state, and to the law. To this day, at Gray Analytics, I'm still working with members of the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, and members of law enforcement with some of the projects that we have going on over there. I have dedicated my life to law and order and to national security. And when you see lawfare, and I resisted it for a very long time, that this isn't lawfare, this is just a bad decision, but it's not lawfare, they're not weaponizing the Justice Department. And then you see Fonnie Willis and how unserious that case is in Georgia. You see Manhattan and Alvin Bragg and how unserious that case was. Juan Merchan, Jack Smith, supersedes both the Mar-a-Lago case and now the January 6th case. And it's not just like, okay, we're going to charge you with one thing and go with that. It's like, no, we're going to, in the timing of this, remember, they just found out about the Mark Zuckerberg news and Hunter Biden's trial, his tax trial, which has all sorts of salacious details where he was writing off prostitutes and cocaine and drug dealers and all that. And that's the evidence of his evasion of taxes. That starts next week, right? And Jack Smith has a habit of bringing these things forward, these indictments, these superseding indictments. He brings them forward when bad news is coming for this administration.
Absolutely. Well, so let me ask you this, though, before I run out of time. So the Alvin Bragg case, which to me was one of the most, it's a travesty of justice. But the Alvin Bragg case is set for sentencing, next month, I believe. Like coming up in a few weeks, September, 18th, 45 days-ish before the election's over. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on sentencing, because it could go everything from a slap on the wrist and go pick up trash on the side of the road for a while to felony jail time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, Alvin Bragg has curiously not opposed delaying sentencing so that they could work through the immunity issues a bit further. Remember, Alvin Bragg's trial had all sorts of evidence of official conduct. In fact, they referred to it as official conduct, not only in their opening statements, but their closing arguments and when they were eliciting the evidence, right? So there's really no hiding that. It's really whether or not that was error or not. And I would say to you that if you admit inadmissible evidence, it is always reversible error. And there's no such thing as harmless error when somebody had a constitutional right that was violated and evidence borne against them in a trial. Think of a bad search. Well, we admitted it anyway, but we think you would have been convicted without it, so this conviction stands. Well, what's the point of the Fourth Amendment then, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Same thing with presidential immunity in Article 2. So I think that what you're going to see is that this will get pushed a bit further. It wouldn't surprise me if it only gets pushed into. I mean, if Merchan pushes it the week before the election or something like that, it probably would help Trump because it would seem so deliberate. What he should do is dismiss the conviction, vacate the conviction. And make Bragg start over without that evidence. And you and I both know, well, Okay,
Yeah.
that's not going to ever see the light of day again.
No.
And without that official conduct, all that, remember, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the meeting with Cohen in the Oval, his tweets, what he was doing in the Oval, how he paid checks, things like that. That's all official conduct that's inadmissible now. All they basically have at this point would be a little old lady named Deb who made the data entry and Michael Cohen sending checks, right? That's it. So a lot of this Trump conduct goes away. Doesn't mean a Manhattan jury wouldn't do it again. But I think that Trump certainly has a lot of legal arguments.
No, I think
here.
I think you're absolutely right. I think if the appellate courts review Fani Willis in Georgia and they take her off the case, I think that case goes away. And I think you're right. If there's a vacation of the current convictions in New York, I don't think it ever comes back again. I think they're just cooked. I think they're done. Their whole goal was to stop the election process from having a unconvicted nominee, and
right,
and they're not going to get that. But let me. All right, final words here, Jay. In all your years, have you ever seen anything where you had this much civil and criminal it's almost like a circular firing squad. They are surrounding and firing from all directions, and it's falling apart around their feet at this point.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it in my career. I remember maybe the biggest criticisms of me were that I didn't indict enough people. Right? It was never that I was always indicting the wrong person or that I was just targeting, a guy that I disagreed with. You got to have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to convict someone, even if you think they're involved. There's the colloquial, pundit who thinks, well, that guy probably did it too. Well, that's great. That's great evidence. Let me throw that against the wall and see if that gets me beyond reasonable doubt. I'm a professional. You carry around a pen, so I'm gonna trust my instincts on this one. So yeah, I've never seen anything like this. That's why I do subscribe to the idea that this has been lawfare all along, and it continues. But God bless the man. He's got alligator blood in his veins, and he's not curled up in a ball on the floor. He's fighting as hard as he ever has, and he's gonna win. He's gonna win, Phil.
Well, at this point, I think not only does he need to win for his own benefit, he needs to win for our benefit because, truth be told, if they can do it to him, they can do it to anybody.
And he wants to win for our benefit most of all. I do believe that in my gut.
Jay Town, as always, man, good commentary. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Phil. See
all
you,
right,
man.
take care. Super 5. All right, yeah, always, as always. Move us to the break there, Big Rig. I ran long, but yeah, that's never seen anything like it. I'm going to tell you right now, if a former U.S. attorney, 12-year Marine Corps JAG officer, private practice, DA, prosecutor, has never seen anything like it, well, then it ain't never been seen. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world, one soundbite at a time. Got a bunch of text messages, a bunch. Let me see if I can get a few of them before I go to the next topic. James from Huntsville says, can we also prosecute Hack Smith for his lawfare when Trump wins? I don't. Probably not, but I will be honest with you. I don't think he's going to have a job. There's that. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, since Jack Smith was not approved by the Senate, how can he still be a special prosecutor? That's one of the issues on appeal right now. He said, I guess it's a lot like how judges and AGs change the voting laws in various states without authority, so why are we standing for this if it's unconstitutional? I do not disagree. Bama Grant from Huntsville says, Jim Jordan subpoenaed Marshawn's daughter to cough up some documents by September 10th. Just happened today. I saw that headline. I've not read the article yet. And I think we have to be careful with that. I don't think we need to be seen as trying to intimidate a sitting judge on a matter currently before the bench. I mean, that's a dicey situation for him to do that. But I also get why he's doing it, because Judge Marshawn's daughter has been fundraising off of her dad being the judge. And she's a fundraising activist for the left. More to come. Paul from Decatur says, great monologue today. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that, man. David from Buc-ee's, just lost it. It went away. There it is. David from Buc-ee's says, Phil, a federal appeals court ruled that illegal immigrants cannot carry weapons and are not protected by the Second Amendment. That's the case. I guess I need to see that case, man. I can't speak to a case I haven't read, but it says illegal migrants do not have gun rights protected by the Second Amendment. Okay, I tell you what, man, David, you're welcome to send me a link to that. I'd love to see it. Brian from Blunsville, can Jackass Smith be prosecuted? I got a brand new texter who just tells me his name is Blaine. I don't know. Blaine, tell us where you're from and all that so we can put you in the system. He says, hey, Phil, what about the federal judge deciding that Jack Smith was inappropriately appointed as special counsel? Yeah, so that's a great point. So Judge Eileen Cannon agreed that immunity applied, and I believe she also questioned. I don't know that she ruled. I need to look back at that and see, Blaine, but thank you for, again, this is a question that is certainly before the bench right now. Badger from Athens says, happy hump day. Appreciate you, man. John from Huntsville says, is it Jack Smith or Jackassery? You know you got a sound effect you got to hit right now, Big Rig. He just called for it, basically. There it is. Jackassery is what we got, man. Couple more and I'll jump over. Gary from Decatur says, why aren't these law professors / commentators on all the mainstream media TV channels commenting on this unlawful warfare against Trump? At least their ethics and morals are very selective. At the worst, they are participants in this farce sacrificing the rule of law. Because they are paid to be pundits. That's why. And if somebody ever said, well, why would you do that? They would say, I am just rendering my opinion. There's an ethical requirement. I mean, you're as an attorney, you're literally required to acknowledge the law that may be contrary to the opinions that you have, but you're allowed to try and do what's called distinguishing it or abrogating it. So you're allowed to tell the judge, Your Honor, this case does stand for that, but it stands for it upon different grounds, or the facts and circumstances were different. And so, I don't know. All I know is this. Some of them got it so wrong that I'm not sure how they could ever recover. Jerry from Decatur earlier today says, great monologue, Phil. Like the establishment of Jesus' day was out to destroy him after he began his ministry by lawfare, the establishment of our day has been out to destroy Trump by using lawfare. What's the reason? I wouldn't call Trump Jesus, but I do see what you're saying. There you go. Brandon from Union Grove says, Lacey Springs, Alabama, Brandon. He says that person who said our vote in Alabama doesn't count, you have to vote because Alabama has new sectors now, and I'm afraid that Alabama is sending 2 Democrats. So, yeah, you have to vote. That's a great point, man. Good point. We need every vote, and every vote. And then Brian from Huntsville, if you don't vote, you have zero right to complain. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one. I am talking about this one. I mean this one, Alabama. Y'all, this show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, we got I got a full slate of stuff for you. Don't forget, coming up top of the hour is the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. Before I go any further, though, let me just remind you guys. So, Inspire Advisors, what a cool group to have as one of our advertisers. Inspire Advisors. Look, they are good at what they do, and what they do is they help you, all you right side ruffians who like to stand up for what you believe in, but you're also setting aside for your retirement. They help you make sure that what you're investing in is not actually supporting things like abortion or pornography or human trafficking or whatever else might be in a portfolio that are just contrary to what conservatives believe. Yeah, you may be shocked to find out there's things in your portfolio you never would have invested in had you known up front. Well, Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors, they can sit down with you in person for free. No upsell, no fuss, no muss, no trying to, give you a hook. They're gonna literally just sit down with you for free and say, okay, consultation time. Here you go. Here's what you got. I see these things in there, and they're good at what's known as biblically responsible investing. In other words, they will help you find a good way to enhance your bottom line while also supporting things that you do personally stand up for. That's just cool. Look, if you want to do that for free and sit down with them in person and do that, go to their website, www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's moneypatternwealth.com. Or, for that matter, go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. We've got all of our Rightside Radio sponsors on a link there. Go to click on their logo, it takes you right to their website. So, yeah, check them out. It's Inspire Advisors. Man, I mean to say it is like conservative, it's godly, it's balanced. It's financial freedom, man, is what it is. Inspire Advisors, check them out. All right, let me jump into dipper number 2 here. We're going to spend a little time talking about what I call the social lies. Social lies, like lying like a dog is what I'm saying. So let me throw some stats out there for you and just help you to see why this is so important. Because we just had a thing happen. We just had Mark Zuckerberg just basically issue a full-on mea culpa. He's sorry, but yes, apparently I did succumb to pressure. What do you mean, Mark? Pray tell, what has happened? Oh, well, that whole thing about COVID and I don't know, maybe when their whole thing about, the Hunter Biden laptop. Yeah, we were pressured by the government. Really? Now you tell us? Well, they were. They were absolutely pressured by the government. Now you and I both know why that's wrong. Because it's a free speech issue, it's a censorship issue, it's big government investing itself into what you're allowed to think or know. Censorship is not always changing the verbiage. Censorship is sometimes not allowing things to be seen and then providing the false narrative that what you thought you saw wasn't real. Well, here's the deal. There's 333 million Americans, right? I got a study from the Pew Research Institute, and then I did some of my own work to try and find numbers to fill in the blanks. Pew Research did a big survey recently, 10,000 people they surveyed. They want to know how many people get their news from social media. So when you see and hear things like Zuckerberg going, well, the Hunter Biden laptop, we were actually asked by a government not to do it. So when you see and hear that, 333 million Americans. Okay. They say that roughly 30% of all Americans get their news off of social media. 30%. You're talking like 130 million people. And by the way, Big Rig, tell that the caller that I'm going to wind up taking this to the ad. It'll be right after the next break before I can take a call. So 30% of 333 million. That's an epic number. That's 111 million people that get their news off of social media. So when you see things like that, how many people are on Instagram? Just in the United States alone, 169 million people are on Instagram. Whoa. How about TikTok? Apparently roughly the same. 170 million Americans are on TikTok right now. Whoa. Well, how about Twitter or X? Well, 106 million are on there. Well, out of all of them, what does that mean to us? Well, roughly, listen, half of all Twitter users say they regularly get their news there. Half. Y'all, that's 53 million people are getting their news just off Twitter. So when we have the Twitter files now, from when we had Elon Musk buy Twitter and begin to release the files showing us what had happened, and we know the Hunter Biden laptop was suppressed at the request of government, that's 50 plus million people who didn't get to see a story who are telling us now that's where they get their news. If you're not allowed to see it, you may not know it happened. How about this? TikTok. 40% of people who use TikTok say they get their news there from TikTok. TikTok has 170 million people. Americans, just Americans, 170 million American users. If 40% of them surveyed say they get their news there, what are we talking about there? We're talking about, what, 85, no, bring it back down to 40%. We're talking about, Lord, we're talking about 150, no, I'm sorry. We're talking about 70 million people. Good Lord. Same with Facebook. It goes on and on and on. What I'm trying to portray to you is when government colludes with big tech is now what they call the digital public square. It has moved beyond just being that place with the free exchange of information where we talk to each other and it's just a social thing. It's not. They may call it social media. It's not. It's a phenomenon. It's like saying back in the day, we suddenly had radio. Well, you know what that did to the world? We suddenly had radio. Suddenly the free exchange of ideas took a new turn. It grew. It got big. All right, how about this? Then we had TV. Whoa, TV. Social media has become the newest form of communication and the exchange of information. And when you censor radio, when you censor TV, when you censor the newspapers, which is what preceded them, and now you censor social media, you are literally limiting what people are allowed to know. So, what happened with Mark Zuckerberg? Townhall.com's got a piece right here. And another one, I got two from Town Hall. Town Hall says, Dateline yesterday, that we are looking now at a surprising but confirming admission. Mark Zuckerberg, he says, the force behind Meta Facebook, has now written a letter to Ohio Representative Jim Jordan on the House Judiciary Committee, confirming the level of involvement that the White House had in dictating approved speech on his platform. In the two-page letter, it says, Zuckerberg lays out the process that his site curtailed or eliminated exposure to certain content on three segregated subjects at the urging of the Biden administration and the White House specifically, is what it says. Regarding COVID, yes, we had that. Regarding the inability to see the Hunter Biden laptop, yes. And then issues related to the elections, yes. I mean, this is unbelievable. But folks, are we surprised? No, not really. I mean, and we're also told don't be fooled, because the reason why Mark Zuckerberg is making something known now is because he's probably worried about Trump getting elected, and he figures he better come out and, I mean, we were told that the conspiracy theories and the Russian disinformation was a thing on Facebook back in the day, and you couldn't say otherwise. And now he basically comes out and goes, oops, our bad. We won't let them do that to us anymore. Sorry that happened. Well, yeah, you're saying that right before the next election when you realize that the people who you allowed to influence and censor may not get elected. And you better be checking your back. So Facebook, this article in Town Hall points out, Facebook has fact-checked us into oblivion with so-called independent fact-checkers. They've hid content from the public, stripped away the ability to monetize by conservatives. It says, this is Town Hall talking, we watched a once thriving online community looking to stay informed and debate ideas slowly disappear. Facebook was determined to wipe out political content, and they succeeded with the help of the White House. the Biden-Harris White House. I'm telling you, man, if Harris gets elected, you better go ahead and just kiss your free speech goodbye. It's a maddening thing. All right, listen, we're going to wind up taking a break. Big Rig, move it to the break. Well, I'll go ahead and take it about 30 seconds early so that we can get that done and come back. And I know I got somebody waiting on the line, so I will definitely get to him momentarily. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. It's the social lies. We'll be right back. back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Hey, by the way, that Blaine we had earlier that checked in on the text message, that's Blaine from Rainbow City. Outstanding. I know that guy. Blaine from Rainbow City. We're glad you're in the text string now, buddy. Let me go to the phones. I know he held on for a long time. Wolverine Dan. Hey, brother, how you doing?
That's my new intro music when I come in. The little Motor City Man.
That's
from
it.
Detroit. That's my boy.
That's it.
Now,
what you thinking?
You said something. Some guy would text you or something, said something about, why should I vote? It's a red state and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of reasons why you vote. I could name several of them. The first one would be people died for my freedom and my right to vote.
Yeah.
That alone puts me in that where I vote for sure.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I don't like the way where we're going with our leadership and how the country's being run and where we're heading to. A lot of this deception, lies. How does President Trump, up by 600,000 votes in the middle of the night in Pennsylvania, and then in the morning end up by being 600,000 behind? How does my other thing is why do you see people taking suitcases from underneath white cloth tables from underneath there? What's in those suitcases? That was shown on a video. I think it's all of our right. When we go to the poll, we gotta, if I see something, I'm going to say something that ain't right, which I probably will not see here. But if I did, I would stand up and say something, even though you might have some rough guys, or what do you call it, tough guys on the other side. They want to beat me up. Yeah, go ahead, try to beat me up. I'm fighting for my freedom. I'm fighting for my country. I have no problem with that. But Phil, there's going to be some deception going here. Dead people are going to be voting. A bunch of mail-in ballots. They circle the wagons really well when it comes to electing somebody. And I'm sure, unlike other people, Phil, when they all said and done, in the last election, I was scratching my head going, well, how'd this happen? So there's a lot of us probably scratching our head going, how did this happen? Well, I just told you how it happened, Phil. It's called a conscience. The other side, a lot of them don't have conscience. They just want to have the power. And unfortunately, I can't do that, Phil. I know you can't either. So bottom line is, we have to show up. We bring our friends and make sure and tell everybody, you need to show up there for the mere fact that people died for our freedom and to vote.
That's exactly right, man. So well put, and I appreciate you hanging on long enough to be able to say it. But the reality is, you miss 100% of what you don't shoot at, right? And so don't. And by the way, like you said, don't sacrifice the fact that this is a right, a constitutionally protected right that people have died for. Absolutely. All right, Wolverine Dan, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
All right.
See you, man. See you. Hey, and let me just jump back before we go here. And just point out, there are things that are happening. The social media thing that I'm talking about right now, I'm calling it social lies, with Zuckerberg's admission and the vast number of people, we're talking hundreds of millions of Americans, who get their news and information off of some form of social media. I mean, when you hear we have 333 million people and 30% of U.S. adults are saying they get their news there, well, what does that mean? Well, that's a huge swath of people. Tens of millions of people are getting their news from social media. And when social media then admits, yeah, we helped with basically changing the narrative, the government pressured us. And Zuckerberg saying the White House literally leaned in and said, do it. Well, what have we learned from Twitter? There's an article that I pulled from Fox that came out a year and a half ago, January of 2023. Elon Musk purchased Twitter and began to release what was known as the Twitter files. Number one, it was revealed that it was confirmed that Twitter participated in the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Number two, it was revealed that algorithms have been set to allow for shadow banning of conservatives. All right. Number three, it was revealed that Twitter did, in fact, permanently suspend a sitting president. Well, we knew that out front, but we got to see the background and the discussions that were taking place and the leaning in by government officials to try and help make it happen. We have another one here. I think it's number 4, that the FBI was almost like a subsidiary of the tech. The FBI had a portal by which they could have direct communication with the misinformation team at Twitter. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. They were doing things like helping with the influence campaign to censor the Hunter Biden scandal. Not just like not let the story out and call it misinformation, but like literally coordinating an effort with government officials. Then you had the White House crackdown on COVID and not allowing the narrative. Remember when the doctors who care, remember that? The doctors who care, the doctors who were determined to say there are other ways to treat this, when their story was suppressed and the video was taken down and they were deplatformed? Remember that? Don't use ivermectin. If you use ivermectin, you're an idiot. If you don't get the jab, you're part of the pandemic. Listen, all of this was found out. Zuckerberg now admits it. Not only do we see it in the Twitter files, but Zuckerberg's admitting that it happened with Facebook. Tens of millions of Americans having what they see and hear shifted to fit a government-sponsored narrative because the left can't let you have truth. And then you got what's happened just this past week. Foreign countries, God bless the fact that our founders gave us the First Amendment. But not everybody in the world has that. We're seeing threats from the United Kingdom for people outside of their country who dare to say something they don't like on social media. We're seeing France just recently arrested the CEO of Telegram. Well, that's kind of huge, so much so that story here on Daily Fetched just this morning. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovsky, revealed that he basically fled France because he was afraid they were about to arrest him. He basically had to announce, he said, I'm a little late, but it's good reason because I just safely departed from Europe. France has threatened Rumble. And so Pavel Durov, the Telegram CEO, is under arrest right now. And you've got people that own social media platforms that when we can no longer suppress the narrative, they just go ahead and arrest the owners. I'm telling you, folks, social lies, they are out there. You got to be careful. Research what you find. Verify its authenticity best you can. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Coming up next, the Grand Council. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on Hump Day. And you know the deal, we don't just play the camel at the beginning of the show. We also got something we tend to do every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. That's where I bring in 2 of my brethren in talk radio. We ping each other with questions and to see where the chips may fall. I like to call it a confab of the Grand Council. So let me go ahead and just call the roll from FM Talk 1065 down yonder in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show. Oh, by the way, he's also the editor-in-chief for 1819 News. Jeff Poor, are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed. Thank you, sir. All right, looking up north then. From 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN out of Huntsville, host of the Dale Jackson Show. Oh, by the way, he's on a bunch of other radio stations, he claims. And he writes for Yellowhammer News. Dale Jackson, you there? Okay, he unmuted and there he is. All right, stand at ease. I pronounce a quorum. Hit it, Big Rig.
Assemble the Grand Council.
All right, fellers, let's dive right in. Dale Jackson, you go first. What do you got?
Tim Walz on a podcast,
Woo!
you know, the the vice president of the United States emotional support candidate. He was on a podcast and he said, you can tell a man by looking at his gutters. And I don't know if this is like a Democratic thing that like you pretend your father has all these folksy sayings and stuff. My father only said, shut the hell up. Did that not hurt enough? Do I need to do it more? That's the kind of stuff my dad said to me. He never once looked at me and said, you can tell the man by looking at his budget, or you can tell the man by looking at his gutters. Why do they continuously tell these lies about things that people say when nobody actually says them?
So this is your question. Okay, so first of all, I will say this. I have said multiple times, even on the show, you can live in a dirt floor shack and you can still sweep your dirt because that's part of taking care of whatever you got. So if he's trying to say that people who clean their gutters out are the kinds who pay attention to the details and all that, I don't know that I can argue with that. It's not like I'm a Tim Walz fan all of a sudden, but his logic
Sounds
is
like it to me.
sound. No.
It must be you combat veterans sticking together.
Oh, okay. Well, there it is. I did carry weapons of war in a war zone. But Jeff, you weigh in, man. Is it nonsensical? Is it dad joke stuff, or is it legit? What do you think?
I've never heard that. I think that's something he made up.
Who,
on the
Dale?
spot.
Who, Dale or Tim Walz?
Tim Walz, yeah. I mean, I just Googled it. I can't even. I am very, very skeptical of this claim.
I think
from
Dale
Tim Walz.
dreamed this one.
Well, you know what's funny? You know what's funny about this is you say that, Jeff. I don't think Jeff's questioning me. He's questioning whether Walz said. Yeah. He's questioning whether Walz actually says this to anybody. The part that I find just so absurd about this is Tim Walz doesn't even own a house. He doesn't own anything. So the guy's all of a sudden having all these grand pronouncements about different things. It's like, come on, don't just say you want to raise taxes. Can we not just have that conversation? Do we have to have like a fake conversation about a conversation? Why do we have to do that?
Maybe he's looking for a career in talk radio. I don't know. He's got people that clean his gutters. So what does that say? Listen, the bottom line is this: Tim Walz is goofy. And we're gonna see how goofy when he does his interview. I tell you what, I'll take the next question, which leads me to this, because I do love. I think it was Megyn Kelly that said that he's basically Kamala Harris's emotional support therapy dog or something like that. But she's doing an interview. All right, fellers, she's gonna do a real interview on CNN with Dana Bash. You know how good that's gonna go. But she's not gonna do it by herself. She has to have her emotional support element there with her. Your thoughts on whether it makes sense or no sense for her to have Tim Walz do the interview with her. Jeff, you first.
I mean, if I'm Tim Walz, are you going to interrupt her? Like, is there even going to be an opportunity for him to speak? Like, I don't understand this format at all. And even if you look at him as being there as her emotional support animal or whatever, like, what good does that do? It's very strange. But is this what the campaign really wanted? And they think that this is going to, aren't liberals the party or the ideology that thinks that a woman is strong, a woman can stand alone? Doesn't this defy that?
Is he going to wear a vest that says "support dog" on it? That's what's weigh in, Dale.
My wife recently bought $900 in kitchen knives without talking to me.
Woo!
Yeah, and the guy who sold them to her said to her, "Don't you think your husband should be here to make the final purchase?" Which I think he worked her personally. That's what I think was happening there. But she also needed a man around to make decisions. So I'm guessing that this is that same situation. Kamala Harris just needs a nice, strong man around to help her.
So I used to sell Cutco knives with a patented double D edge, and I wish that I had known your wife then, because I would have sold a lot more knives.
They were Cutco.
Well, Dale, have you ever made a frivolous purchase of $900 or more without consulting your wife?
Absolutely not.
Come on.
Without consulting her?
I've seen your man cave. No way she approved some of the stuff in there.
I'm a simple man. No, you guys are wrong. She's the spender, not me.
I just booked a trip to Vegas, babe.
I do that. Yeah, I do do that. I do do that, but I always fly cheap and stay on the floor of seedy hotels.
Okay, so listen, the bottom line is this. She's doing the debate. I think that Tim Walz is there to be the interpreter. I think it's sort of like those conversations I had overseas where the interpreter had to relay what was being said, and that's how Dana Bash is going to know what Kamala's saying. That's what I say. Tim Walz is the interpreter. There, I said it. By the way, Dale, just so you know, my lovely Charlene just texted in and said she actually saw the clip about the gutters. It was real.
There it is. I put the video up on my Facebook page, so yeah, it's real.
Jeff, first question. What do you got for us?
October 10th, the AL.com will host a debate between Caroline Dobson and Shamari Figures. My question is, at what point during this debate will the moderator ask about Roy Moore?
Jeff, didn't I come up at this debate, one of these debates recently?
Yeah. Well, it was like 8 years ago or something.
Okay, we consider that recently.
That's recent enough. Yeah, in the last generation, there was a question about Dale Jackson. Listen, AL.com hosting this, where all of their Pulitzer Prize winners, yank, are liberal progressive leftists, and they're going to wind up being the ones hosting. Why isn't 1819 hosting this thing? 1819, Rightside Radio, Yellowhammer. We should have just done a joint hosting of a debate like this.
You think Shamari Figures is going to come anywhere near that?
Not without his emotional support candidate sitting next to him. But, I look at this and think, so Roy Moore, yeah, they probably will bring it up. And then at the same time, they'll probably ask questions about, is she an election denier and did she ever get the COVID vaccine? I mean, it's going to be, I'm not impressed with AL.com's ability to handle politics, so we'll just wait and see how it goes. But this is designed to be the Shamari Figures night, in my opinion, just in advance. But good on Caroline Dobson. She's going. She's not going to throw it off. She's going to be there. Dale?
Well, if Roy Moore does come up, Caroline Dobson should look Kyle Whitmer right in his beady little eyes and say to him, "Hey, aren't you that schmuck that put a poll up at AL.com asking if Roy Moore was gay? Remember when you were doing that? Aren't you guys? You guys are the ones that did that, right? I just want to make sure I did it since we're having a discussion about Roy Moore. Hey, what did that poll say, Kyle? Did it say that?" And she should throw it right back in their face, be combative with them, and, Kyle will probably cry. But yeah, I agree, both of you. Why are they doing it? Why in the world them? I get that it's the biggest outlet, all that stuff. It's a sports blog with a liberal bent and all that. I get that. But it really is kind of sad that they're getting this opportunity and they weren't able to work in one. Is Cameron Smith going to be there? Is he going to be the conservative guy to ask the question? What are the rules here?
Who are the moderators? Do we know, Jeff?
Ivana, whatever it is.
Okay.
Used to be Sussex.
Her and Q,
she
yeah.
got married.
Yeah. That's it? Just her?
That's it. She's the moderator. But they have this new editor in chief. Well, he's been there about 6 months. And he comes from Gannett Newspapers, guys, but he was the guy, there's a lawsuit pending that allegedly said that he was not going to hire any more straight white males in his newsroom. And that's the new editor of AL.com. And I don't know why you would go marching into that territory.
Well, at the same time, before we go any further with that, Jeff, maybe they should fire all of the straight white males that are there right now in order to get rid of Archibald and Whitmer and Goodman and all these other guys. Get rid of those guys, and maybe there'd be a better entity.
Wow. So let me get this straight. They won't hire anymore, but yet their Pulitzer Prize winners are straight white males. Just saying. That's kind of.
Are you sure about that?
Straight presenting white males. How about that?
Okay. You heard it first on Right Side
We made
Radio.
it a new gender here on Right Side Radio.
It's so fluid now we can't even keep up. All right, that's round one. I can't believe we flew through that one. All right, round one, and y'all destroyed my question list. I got to think of some more during the break. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, here with Dale Jackson and Jeff Poor, the Grand Council. Y'all stay tuned. Round two coming up. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Going right back to round number 2 of the Grand Council with Dale Jackson and Jeff Poore. And I think it was Dale opened us up. So, Dale, round 2, open us up again. What you got?
You are the lawyerly type, Senator.
That was a rumor.
And I need to ask you this question. Jack Smith's new indictment or his new case that he's making.
Yeah.
Is there any judge who's going to look at this and go, oh, you're trying again? Okay, cool. Come on in.
Yeah, so the judge they're currently in front of is the kind who would do that. So, we did the whole first segment. Even had Jay Town on to help unpack it on the show today.
Oh, better lawyer.
Yeah, thank you very much. But there's so it's a superseding indictment. Basically, the old indictment was still there. He just superseded it with a new version of the indictment to try and improve his odds of staying in the fight, because so much of the old indictment contained things the Supreme Court just recently said can no longer be considered. So it's basically it's an oops. It's like oh crap, my case is about to get thrown out, so let me modify it. It's an amended pleading, but he took it back before a grand jury. He got them to agree that yes, we can pursue this, but just under slightly different terms. The Judge Chutkan that he has from the D.C. Circuit is a lib. I mean, is a true lib. This is like, this is like the best judge in the world that Jack Smith could ever hope for. The question is, does she read the tea leaves and recognize that she doesn't want to be on the record allowing something that is already so flawed? And that if she does it, it won't be for Trump's benefit or the rule of law. It'll be to preserve her own record, in my opinion. Jeff, you want to weigh in?
Sure. I guess the only thing I would weigh in on is conservatives and Republicans, they got to do something about the D.C. Circuit.
Oh, my gosh.
It is. It's you used to make jokes about the Ninth Circuit on the West Coast. I mean, the D.C. Circuit is way, way too left of center now.
D.C. Circuit is where the law goes to die. That's exactly what happens. It's that bad. Dark side of the moon, man. Your own question, Dale. Pray tell, wow us with your prowess. What do you got there?
I have a journalism degree from Florida. I don't know. That's why I asked. That's why I asked the question. I don't know.
All right, let me ask you guys another question. My turn. Here we go. I'm going to pick from one of my 2 that I got on my list. I'll take this one. So RFK Jr. Suspended his race, came out and endorsed Trump. Tulsi Gabbard on Monday came out and endorsed Trump. What do you see this, yays or nays? Is this a good thing for the Trump campaign? Is it a nothing burger? Jeff, you first.
Yeah, I said this last week. I think it's marginal. There's a lot of sort of a feel-good enthusiasm right now. I think it helps Jill Stein. I mean, I just if you're committed to like they both suck and I'm not going to vote for either one of these guys, are you all of a sudden, well, since RFK's endorsed, I'm going to go for Trump?
Well, I mean, I think go ahead, Dale. You first. What do you got?
Polling seems to indicate that a lot of those people will go to Trump. Is it enough to make a difference, a percentage point here and there? Maybe. Is it a game changer? I'm not so sure. But, I mean, this is a close race, and you need anything you can get in these swing states. I think the writing is on the wall when you look at what you're seeing in Michigan, where they're like, sorry, Cornel West, you want to be on the ballot? You can't. RFK, you want to get off? You can't either. I think we know what that is. And I think they believe that keeping him on the ballot will hurt Trump. And I thought the RFK thing would hurt Trump all along. So I think it's a net positive. Obviously, how big it is a net positive, I don't know. And like Jeff's repeatedly said, and he's right about this in 1,000 different ways, it's a race of electoral college votes, not popular vote. In these different states, that's where we're having our battles, and I don't know how much this comes into play there. And just, I don't want to be a stolen valor guy. I have a telecom degree from the J School at Florida. Just throw that out.
Thank you for clarifying the record. Good on you. All right, last question of the day. Jeff, what do you got for us?
Bruce Pearl, Auburn University basketball coach.
Woo-hoo.
How much longer is he going to be able to continue on his continue this without somebody somewhere along the way in higher academia cracking down?
You talking about on his commentaries?
Yes.
You know what? Good luck with that, because he's developed quite a following, not just for basketball, but for his personality and his willingness to say what is on his mind. So I think they're going to have a hard row to hoe getting him to stop, because they've basically ratified, in the eyes of the law, they have ratified his behavior by not stopping him at first. And even then, stopping him would have been dicey, because his personality is the kind that doesn't take kindly to being told what to do when he believes in something. So I think the reality is this. I think he's going to be able to continue doing it as long as he's at Auburn because that's already been ratified into continued existence. Dale.
I have a question about the question.
Okay.
Are there any
Clarify.
rumblings in Auburn land that they've had enough of this guy?
There's always been that about him, but he wins. I think if he is not winning, if he isn't winning SC championship last year or whatever, then maybe it's a different discussion.
Okay, then my answer is I think he's fine. You're seeing Joseph Goodman, who at AL.com, who tried so hard to get Harsin out because he wouldn't say he got the vaccine or not.
Yeah.
And going after him today. Oh, what is the point of these tweets? What's the point of your tweets, you schmuck? You told people to run out into traffic who disagreed with you and die. What was the point of that? So that's what he had done before there at AL.com. So they're I think they're starting to turn their guns on him. I don't think it'll be very effective. If you win, you stay. If Colin Kaepernick could throw over the middle and get a completion, he'd still be playing football, kneeling or not.
Well, no, and I totally agree. I think part of the truth here is that Bruce Pearl actually has his own following. He's not just the basketball coach. I think there's a little bit of a cult of personality attached to him too.
Well, real
regionally
quick,
and just for student body. Yeah, what?
Real quick, kind of an add-on. What does he run for someday?
Woo! Well, there's a governor's race coming up in the near. I don't know, but I think
he wants to be the ambassador to Israel.
I think that'd be a hoot. I think that'd be awesome. Trump will appoint him tomorrow. I could see Tuberville weighing in on that one and making it happen. All right, fellas, the bell's about to ring, so I'll go ahead and call it there. Appreciate both of you. Have an amazing day. That's the Grand Council with my brethren Jeff Poor from FM Talk 106.5 down yonder in Mobile, host of his own morning show, The Jeff Poor Show, and also with 1819 News. And by the way, he also does work with Breitbart. And then you've got Dale Jackson at 770 AM, 92.5 FM, plus other stations around the state. Plus, he does some pretty cool stuff with Yellowhammer News. Golly bum, I said it all. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I mean it when I say it, Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. So let me remind you guys, one of our newest advertisers, Inspire Advisors, they got a new thing, all right? I'm about to give you something else for free here. In fact, I'm really kind of amazed how much free stuff they give away. But Inspire Advisors, Paul Breyer and his team over there at Inspire, you hear me talk about their biblically responsible investing, how they can help you to invest in your portfolio in ways that makes you feel proud of who you're investing in and while you're also growing your bottom line. Well, they're going to start doing a couple of fall educational series this September. You can sit through classes that'll teach you all the things about how to analyze your portfolios, transform them into like biblically aligned investments, learn how to screen companies out, select the right asset allocations and risk reward to meet your goals. In other words, what they're saying is they can have you sitting there in a classroom understanding how best to check things out before your investment dollars go into it, so you're not only proud of it, but you're benefiting from it. That's the important thing. So yeah, coming up in October and November, Paul Breyer is going to invite people into a deep dive of retirement planning and risk management. And you can get in there. They got limited space available, but these classes are going to be for free. And if you want to sign up, you got to go to their website and do it. It's Inspire Advisors. Their website is www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's moneypatternwealth.com. Or just for that matter, go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. Click on the Rightside Radio sponsors tab and go to their logo and just click on it. It takes you right to their website. Yeah, attendance is limited. Don't miss your chance. This is how you figure out how to literally invest in things that support your values and also grow your bottom line all at the same time. It's very cool. It's to me, it's the combination of conservatism and good capitalism. What a great thing. Inspire Advisors, check them out. Okay, let me. I'm gonna go on a mini rant. I'm just gonna go free range here for a minute. I got a third dipper, and I'm willing to sacrifice my potential for points on John's scorecard today, just to do a bit of a mini rant. So, like a little bit of a joke here. I'm looking at. So we're talking about. Let me back up. Use your words, Phil. All right. So you got this situation where Kamala Harris has done 0 interviews. 0. She has done nothing in over a month after being tapped by the guy they forced out, who's still vacationing right now. Biden succumbed to the coup, and he bowed out, and he turned it all over to his successor, Vice President Kamala Harris, who had poll ratings that were in the tank before that happened. Everybody called her the fire insurance policy. Biden will never drop out because they know they're stuck with Kamala. Well, now she's it. As we sit here today, there are still no policy positions on her campaign website. I have never heard of that. Have you? Nobody has. I have never heard of just saying, I'm running, and that's all it takes. None of the, here's what I stand for. None of the, here's what I'll do. None of the, here's how I'll do it. Here's how I compare and contrast to the other guy. She's running right now on, I'm here and I'm not Trump. That's what she's running on. Now, she can give the occasional speech to talk about how we're going to do wonderful things and help you to be unburdened from that which has gone before you and things and free stuff. And I'm going to make sure you know. And suddenly she's starting to flip-flop a little bit, like maybe she's leaning towards a border wall now. What? But yet there's nothing on her website. Why is that? It requires commitment. That's why. It requires actual commitment. So she's done no interviews. There's nobody allowed to ask her a hard question. Why? It's scary. That's why. Because she's horrible at it. And she knows it. And her campaign knows it. And the powers that be know it. And they're like, oh, crap. The thing that we feared the most is now we got to rely upon her to speak extemporaneously in front of a microphone. Oh, my gosh. And they're scared to death of it. Well, yesterday it comes out that she's going to do an interview. Really? Pray tell, when will this be? Well, it's going to be with CNN, first of all. And they're talking about it right now. It's tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. They're calling it the first interview. like they're proud of it. It's the first interview. It ought to be the 91st interview. She should have done 3 a day. Whoever heard in a free and capitalistic society for someone to, as a matter of just transparent democracy, running for office and not being willing to talk about running for office. I do not mean giving an organized speech. I mean being willing to face the music. Trump is getting interviewed on a near daily basis. Trump is calling for interviews. Trump is going to the press and going to bat with the press, man. There are times when they'll zing things at him and he'll zing it right back. I saw some great videos just the last couple of days. It's a hoot. But she's going to do an interview, except that she's really not doing the interview. It's like a, I don't know, couples therapy moment or something, because she's got Tim Walz coming with her. Well, Phil, it's the team presenting itself to the public. They've already done that. They had a whole RNC conference. What do we need to present? Babylon B has a new tweet that just went up a little while ago. It says, strong, capable woman asks man to come with her to job interview in case they ask any hard questions. That's funny, not funny, but there you go. It's just absolutely, it's asinine. They are the party that enhances women's rights, and we're all about women and being empowered, and hashtag me too, and I'll tell you. And what is she going to do? She's going to bring the old white guy there to mansplain things for her, I guess. What's that all about? So here we have the strong, capable Kamala Harris, the girl boss. Don't need no man, unless she's doing an interview, and then she's got to bring the man. I'm not sure how they reconcile that. So years ago, I mean, this has been a while. Years ago, 25 years ago or more, I had a situation with an employee, a female employee. And she was basically turning in her notice. But she was also such a problem employee that she asked if we could have a final closeout meeting. And I said, absolutely, let's do that. Something about it set off red flags. Well, she was a red flag employee anyway. So I had somebody go with me to the interview. I did. And I thought, that person, we're going to go in there and I'm going to say, this person is here to watch and observe. Except when I got there, I wasn't meeting with her. I was meeting with her and her mommy and daddy. I kid you not. This grown woman who was leaving her job because we found out later on she had gotten pregnant and it was kind of a scandal and she didn't want anybody to know, so she wanted to quit her job and leave town real quick. Whatever. I can't help you there. But she and her boyfriend were going to get married quietly on the side, and it was kind of a whole thing. But the reality was she wanted it to be about work, and it wasn't. And it pretty much came out that way. I'll never forget, though, I walk in the room, and there's the adult employee sitting with her mommy and daddy. And I said, hello, what's going on? Well, I've asked them to be here for emotional support. I said, I am your employer, and you brought your mommy and daddy to the meeting. And she said, well, that's not exactly the way it is. I said, that's what I'm looking at. And we had this discussion, and I tell you what, more than once, her dad tried to interject. And he'd say, are you saying, and I looked at him finally, and I said, I am not even here to meet with you. And so my words are directed at my employee right now. And I look back on it now, and I believe what was happening was they were trying to sucker punch me by having me show up at the meeting. They didn't think I'd bring a witness. My witness sat there and didn't say a word. He was a guy who had every right to be in the room. But she brought her emotional support network because she couldn't do the meeting without it. That's exactly what I feel is happening right now with Kamala Harris. She's got the interview tomorrow night. She's not at all comfortable. She's scared she's going to blow it. She knows that we always find things that are funny about the way she speaks. We know we talk about word salad. We know we talk about her vacuous commentary and how she doesn't seem to have a grasp of the events surrounding her. And yet, she knows she's got to do it at some point. So she picks the one that is the easiest, and she agrees to do a sit down. Oh, by the way, it's not live. It's going to be pre-recorded and edited after. Oh, really? Oh, yes. So she does a pre-record with a friendly source that will be edited thereafter and then aired, 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night? But she has to bring her emotional support network with her. That's how this feels. Now, it may go in. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe I'll go in and find out that this is a hard-charging interview and they're going to ask all the right questions. And how do you respond to them saying this, yada, yada? What do you think about that? And are you really going to build a border wall? And why did you say this back in the years ago? And were you the last one in the room with Biden when he pulled out of Afghanistan? And Tim Walz, how do you feel about that since you're a war veteran? Oh, you're not a war veteran. I mean, if they're really going to do an interview, if they're going to do something like what Trump would have to endure, I can live with it. But right now, the sense that I have is that what we're looking at is the little girl employee decides she has to bring mommy and daddy to meet with the boss because she's scared of what questions are going to be asked. That's how it feels. We'll wait and see. I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Why? Because she's actually the vice president of the United States right now. It'd be nice to know the vice president of the United States has enough emotional stability to be able to do an interview by herself, a real interview, like one where they ask questions. Not like, somebody fawning over and calling her Mamala and sitting there just loving on her in the show. If it happened, listen, I think a lot of people are going to be watching this. What can she do? What will she say? Can she speak on her own? Does Tim Walz have to do cleanup? Does she support Tim Walz? How did he become the candidate? If these are real, if it's real, yay. If not, it's just like little girl brought mommy and daddy to the job interview. There you go. All right, there. Wow, that was on my chest, man. I had to get it off. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, mini rant, totally extemporaneous. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm saying, pulling pins on truth grenades left and right. We are going to the phones momentarily. Let me get a few text messages out of the way. John from Minor says, great rant and well put. He said, Kamala, just the word itself reminds me of the sound of vomiting. He said, just say it. Oh, yeah, no kidding. Kamala Gaga Maggot, he says. John from Huntsville. Oh, the grades are in. He says, John from Huntsville says, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and Jay Town all get an A+ for their equally fantastic performances. Phil Williams hits a solid A for giving a solid performance, which means today's winner is obviously Big Rig with an A++. Obviously, Big Rig, you were obviously the winner today, just so you know.
I don't know how, obviously.
Obviously. You were just, well, you hit that jackassery button at just the right time earlier. That was...
Oh, yeah, right. That's right.
Okay, there you go. Welcome back. Kimball from Harvest says, I'm no fan of Hillary Clinton, but do you think she would need or want a man to support her during an interview in a race to be the first woman to hold the presidency? I can't imagine. No, Kimball, I can't either. And that's part of the point is this is not a good look. Whoever her advisors are did her a disservice by saying, well, here's what we'll do. We'll have you in the room with you. Why? Make him do a follow-up interview. Have him come in for the second half. But anyway, we'll see. Teresa from Town Creek says the Kamala interview was recorded today but will be played tomorrow night. That's according to a Christian news station. Wow. John from Harvest says Tim Walsh is going to the interview so he can find out what Kamala's positions are. Perfect. Let me go to the phone. Is that Jeffro? Jeff from Indiana. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good out here in this 100-degree heat.
Yeah, I thought we were going to start cooling off, but apparently it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, my thermometer in the truck here says it's 100 degrees up here in Tennessee. So, yeah, it's a little warm out there, but I've got about 60 degrees in here, so I'm not too worried about it.
As long as the AC keeps working and so does the radiator, you're okay.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, I just walk away.
What do you think, man? What's going on in your head today?
Jack Smith.
Jack Smith.
Yes, I think I'll go arrest the man.
Really?
I've got every bit as much. Yeah, I've got the authority to do that because I've got just as much authority to arrest him as he does to prosecute Trump, apparently. So, and I'm half serious about it because he was never never affirmed by the Senate.
Yeah.
So he can't be the special prosecutor. I think the judge kind of threw that other case out in the documents case because of that. And I think that Trump should sue the government and get back all his lawyer fees and time that he spent in this case and everything for being maliciously prosecuted and falsely prosecuted by some. I mean, even if he convicted him, the court should throw it out on just because the prosecutor didn't have the authority to prosecute him.
I don't know where this is going to end up. And you know what? You bring up a great point. I don't know to what extent Trump will ever be allowed to petition for the damages, like petition for his costs and fees. There are times when you can do that, especially when you find that there was what you call a malicious prosecution is a real thing. If you can prove it, not just because they were doing what they were told to do, but if you can find like a background document where they were colluding to try and make things worse for the guy because they hate him personally, then that's an absolutely picture-perfect opportunity to demand damages from the court.
I mean, what happens when the government turns its nose up at the Constitution? Is there any legal? If I take away your civil rights under the Constitution, I can be charged with something as an individual.
Yep. Yeah.
What happens when the government takes away your civil rights unconstitutionally? Can they be held for treason?
Well, the Fourth Amendment due process. I mean, it's a violation of constitutional, rights to have, basically a violation of your due process. What? Go ahead.
But what is the penalty for that for the government? If there is no penalty, that's the trouble.
Yeah,
they can get away with it scot-free because there's, we don't jail politicians for or AGs for not following the Constitution. So how do you punish these people?
Well, and you hit on it a minute ago. Restitution is one of those. Not restitution, but compensation for damages. But the reality is this: the majority of times, and you're alluding to it, but the majority of times, what really happens is the government is just told no, and it stops there. In this case, they're being told no, so they're amending the pleadings, trying to go from a different route. It boggles the mind.
Yeah, it really does.
All right,
You
man.
have a good one, Phil.
You too, buddy. We'll see you.
See ya.
Grab a few more text messages real quick. Commander from New Hope says, Phil, if Zuckerberg had come out and admitted to censorship to influence the 2020 election, censored COVID while people were dying and locking down our kids and the laptop, and was being pushed by Democrats to do it all, who's going to go to prison for it? Where are the impeachments and dragging them into courts? You know what? You make a great point, Commander. I mean, the reality is this. Joe Biden's White House was doing this. And I would say that is outside the line and scope of his duties. Now, if they're going to try to claim that there was some reasonable effort to protect the public interest, they need to be forced to make that case. But right now, they're getting. Listen, here's the thing. If Trump doesn't get elected, this all goes away. If Trump does get elected, I think you're going to know more. I think you are, fairly quickly. Benji from Hackleburg says, Kamala has been very specific, though. I don't know what he's referring to. Ron from Huntsville says, her first interview will be pre-recorded. Yes, I know. You're exactly right. And then Ryan from Hazel Green says, why did the first interview make me think of Titanic's maiden voyage? Wow. All right, you guys. Hey, listen. There are more of us than there are them. God is still on his throne. Stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.